Hey everyone, this is the Innovator's Mindset with Tommy Colabufo. There we go. I did the New York Tommy.
Love it.
And I have been talking to Tom Colabufo, and I'm gonna that's the last time I'm seeing your last name. Am I doing okay?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so he is actually a superintendent in Central Square in New York, just outside of Syracuse, correct?
Correct.
We connected. We've been connected for several years. It's funny because one of the last events I did before, COVID was you reconnected, and I haven't talked to you since. And then just reached out to me, and he's doing all this incredible stuff with AI in a school district, leading it as a superintendent. And I'm being honest with you, I'm talking to Tommy, and I'm like giving you the New York Tommy.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Tommy, right? What's
Sure.
what's the quarterback's name? Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. Tommy
Right.
Collins.
But just really some amazing stuff that's happening. We have a mutual connection. Donna, and I'm going to say her name wrong. How do you say DC?
Desiato.
Desiato. I'm going to be honest, one of my favorite superintendents of all time. Just absolutely love her and very visionary. So it does not surprise me that you work closely with her. So Tommy, thanks for being on the podcast. I can't wait to dig in some of the stuff with you because I'm sitting here listening to you before and I'm like, I could just stop you. I'm like, save this for the podcast. There's some really incredible stuff. So Tommy, if you can just kind of introduce yourself, what you do today, how you got there, I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah. So my name's Tom Colabufo, or Tommy.
Tommy.
Been superintendent for 10 years. I taught for 10 years. My first 2 years was in a school called St. Andrew's College in Dublin, Ireland. Would be equivalent to kindergarten through 12th grade here. That was a great experience. Came back to America, was an 8th grade social studies teacher for 8 years in the Fayetteville Manlius School District, also in New York, about 30 minutes from here. Then I was an assistant principal at Oneida High School for 4 years. Then I was principal at an elementary building under my great mentor, Dr. Desiato. She's wonderful, for 4 years. Then for 1 year, I was basically an assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. Then for the past 10 years, I've been superintendent here at Central Square.
One of the things that really kind of stuck out to me when we're kind of just prepping for the podcast and you were sharing some of the stuff that you're doing is, and I don't want to get in trouble saying this too. Your focus on curriculum, your knowledge about teaching and learning is, I'm not saying superintendents don't have it, but you're in depth. And I know this wasn't necessarily the job that you actually wanted at some point, but how has your focus really on curriculum, and really instructional leadership really helped you in this role? Because I think it's such a powerful thing because, I see sometimes superintendents, they'll sit in on a session and, is really talking about teaching, learning, something really powerful. And they're like, yeah, I'm good. And they'll just jet, where you seem really passionate about it. I'm not saying that they don't have, there's obviously other things you got to focus on, but how has that really kind of influenced some of your work and what you're doing today and how you're kind of leading in your school district?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the best superintendents are ones that never sought out to be a superintendent. I just wanted to be curriculum and instruction. The job of superintendent just kind of fell into my lap. So I look at it like this. It's all about life experiences. I've got a 13-year-old and I've got an 11-year-old. My 11-year-old is on the autism spectrum. So I've always been fascinated, even before I had kids, I've always been fascinated not only with content, but how kids absorb it. So as a student myself, there were some subjects that I excelled in, and then math was like my kryptonite. And it always fascinated me how students learn, right? And so, but more importantly, how a teacher taught. In my family, both my parents were teachers. My older siblings are teachers. My cousins, I could literally start a charter school with all of my relatives that are teachers. So I was always fascinated by someone that could captivate. Like when I would watch you, George, you captivated the attendance, right? Of everybody there. Nobody was on their phones unless you told them to get their phone out and tweet something because they were captivated. And so at New York State right now, there has to be this cell phone bell-to-bell ban. But with the best teachers, they didn't need it, right? Because kids were focused. And so for me, I've always been fascinated with that kind of process, like the arc of a lesson. Like, what does a teacher do to hook students? What do they do? Whatever standard they're teaching, are they doing it in a way that kids are they're jazzed to it, right? Like they feel a connection. Right. And what's that exit activity? And what's the teacher actually doing to assess the students and then shift and go in different directions based on whether the kids are getting it or not? That always fascinated me.
Yeah, and that's like, that's something that's really, I think, is going to be at the crux of our conversation today, because I know you have that big focus on curriculum, but you were really kind of hammering some ideas with AI and how you could
Yeah.
use it in the classroom. So before I kind of get into some of the support that you're doing with your teachers in this process, how is it like helping your students, right? And maybe, I don't know if you want to start with your own kids, but
Sure.
there is like something, and you can start anywhere. But this is like, a lot of people are really concerned about it, a lot of nervous. I'm going, and you and I were talking about this before. You're going to rooms, half of people are like, we really need to use this because it's not going away, and half are like, no, this is not happening. We'll wait, let them use it later. But how are you and your school like really
So
using this with students?
I can answer that with a question, George, because you're a bright guy. You've been
Oh
in
no.
thousands of districts. You've been in thousands of districts in America, Canada, everywhere.
Mhm.
Why do you think that our industry, education, still looks the same way as it done for 200 years? It's a rhetorical question because I'm going to answer that for you. Here's why. Because it's not based on a profit margin scale, right? So when companies had to evolve, right, they had to make the product better, they had to make the experience for the customer better. But in education, you really didn't have to. And unfortunately, a lot of things politically cut scores or
Right.
determined by, and so they can say, well, you know what? We put a ton of money into, like the state, different states put money in. We have to show that it's working. We lower those a little bit, or we raise those a little bit. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is to not education by a whole operates at a snail's pace when it comes to technology integration. I don't know why. I don't know who those resistors are, but like you, I consider myself a disruptor in a good way, because if the technology is there, why wouldn't you use it?
Right.
Let me give you an example. My son last year when he was in seventh grade was struggling in accelerated math until I showed him the platform that I happened to be piloting. He would take a picture of his homework assignment, 5 questions. Within 30 seconds, the platform would say, this one was right, this one was right, this one was wrong. You got it wrong in the second step. Here's a quick tutorial. Now, here's my kid who he does not diagnose as ADHD, but like if he's not engaged, he's not engaged. But he was with this.
Hmm.
And it made sense because it knew he was in seventh grade. So it catered the tutorial to a seventh grader. And then it gave him practice ones. And it was like, great job. Now let me give you a little bit harder. Great job. You still struggle with this one. Here we go. Within 30 minutes, my son wasn't looking at TV or talking to his friends. He was zeroed in. He finished with 100 average. And then I thought, why are anybody resisting something like that? If he's able to actually learn the standard at home on a weekend and excel at it, his own teacher came to the gym because I work out with my son after school, and he's like, oh, what's this platform you're using? Jim Cicerelli is the teacher, great guy. And he's like, yeah, Tommy was telling, also my son's name, was
Right.
telling me about this. And he
I
really
was
was
I'm not
fascinated.
surprised about that for some reason.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's what we Italians do, right? We name our
Right.
kids.
Right. That charter school, everyone's named Tommy.
Yeah.
So, and I apologize for interrupting you.
Oh, you're good.
One of the, you know, you said something like, why are people resistant to this? And as I'm listening to you, and I think this is, you and I have very much in common. There's an argument that a lot of people will make. This stuff's not going away, right? So like might as well use it because it's not going away. Whereas I don't think that's how you think. You're like, wow, this stuff is here. Look at all the potential opportunities we have with this, right? You're actually seeing like, oh, like we got to use it because it's not like it's always going to be in our lives, as opposed to like, hey, everything that's, exists doesn't have to be in your life, but if it can make your life better, I think that's what you're really kind of showing people. And when you're talking about your own son, so as you're working with your teachers and you're working with that, you kind of shared an example. And I don't know if that's the one you want to go back to before we started going on, but really kind of getting your staff to not only embrace it and leverage it, but to see the potential of it for their own practice in what they're doing today.
It's the first professional development that I've given where people actually say, besides improving instruction, that doesn't mean that your life gets easier. In most cases, it gets harder, right? You got to do more work to have better results. They say this is the first professional development that actually makes their lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
That they can grade essays, what normally would take in 6 hours, they're doing it in 20 minutes. And it's not like you're giving quality up for for time? No,
Mhm.
it's amazing. It aligns right to whatever grade level it is for the New York State writing standard. And if you're in a different state, the platform aligns for that, right? But it knows that I'm in New York when I'm using it, right? And so it aligns to New York State writing standards. So it gives areas of strength, areas of improvement. It gives an exemplar using the student's writing, but then adding parts to it to make it even better. It's talking about transition sentences. And so it's like teachers look at this and they're like almost crying because I can relate. I would spend 8 to 9 hours every Sunday grading DBQ essays when my friends were going golf, and I'm like, no, and I should have done it on a Saturday, get it out of the way, but no, I would wait, right? Just like when I was in school myself. And so there's that part, but there's the other part that when I was a teacher, I actually wanted to engage the students. So now I got teachers saying, okay, I'm teaching about the water cycle. Give me some really engaging questions it's really going to promote inquiry within our students. And within 10 seconds, they've got 25 questions that are thought-provoking, great questions that they would have taken a long time to come up with. It's done in 10 seconds. They still have to teach, but it's like giving them a Rolls Royce with all of these, the content of what they need, and that they can actually go in, not having run a marathon, preparing all of this. Because here's the deal. The pandemic showed us something, and right now in any classroom, the gap between the higher level students and the struggling students is like a Grand Canyon. Our teachers are expected in New York 180 days. So if you're an elementary teacher, that's 5 preps times the 180, right? You got your math teacher, your science teacher, ELA teacher, and we're expecting them to create lessons to accommodate everybody's needs, including students with an IEP and 504. Now, all of that can be done in an amazing lesson in under 3 minutes, and it's outstanding. So whatever platform people are using, we're just piloting. We just piloted. Now we're purchasing an amazing one. It's on the Boise coaster, so that's huge for us.
What's it called? Can you just
So it's called 4EDU, like for educators,
Yeah.
FOR, and then EDU AI. And so I like it because they partnered with the Thoughtful Classroom. Harvey Silver has been leading in that for like 50 years. This guy's been professional development and he's based out of Florida, but his company are in all school districts. You mentioned Donna Desiato. She raved about him. She's the one that got me into the Thoughtful Classroom tools and strategies. And now it's like the tools were great, but now with the AI platform, it's taking these amazing tools and it's actually putting the content behind it. So if you're a physics teacher, you don't have to okay, I'm going to do this one called task rotation. It's 4 different learning styles. And then they have to go back and do the work. Now AI, this platform, will actually take whatever learning standard in physics the kids are learning and quickly incorporate it with that tool in like 2 minutes.
You know, there's years ago, I remember doing a professional learning session, and a teacher said this to me, and it always resonated with me, and it's something that really guides my work. They said, teachers aren't scared of change. That's not what they're scared of. They're scared of spending their time on something that has no impact on the classroom.
Correct.
And so when you're discussing this, it's like, hey, we're not asking you to do everything that you're doing plus this stuff. It's rethinking what you're doing so you can actually make better use of your time and actually can have deeper learning. And so if you can focus on making better usage of your time and deepening the learning of the students, who's going to argue that? Do you know what I mean? I think that's where your focus is.
I agree 100%. Really what it is making connections with the learning with kids. And what this platform, what AI allows us to do, let me give you an example. I could take my sons, and I've done this, that's helped them get that 100. What I would do is I would upload into the platform. It would literally take about 45 seconds, 9 of his quizzes. And within 30 seconds, it would recognize the patterns of what he struggled with. And it would create tutorials based on that. Now, the best teachers can do that, but can they do that for 175 kids? And can they do that in a timely way? Why would we not use artificial intelligence that can do this? One of my previous board members, when he knew I was really piloting all these, he goes, "Oh, look, I'm sold." He read an article. It was about a top oncology hospital, and it specialized in early identification for brain cancer. And so there were like 500 patients that had all died. And when they fed it through they used ChatGPT, it was able to identify the markers that showed that it was cancer that a human doctor couldn't do, right? And so when I see that, it's like, okay, so if they're using it in all these other fields and people say, well, AI, no, it doesn't just make things quicker or easier for people. It's such a high level that you get.
So as I'm listening to you and kind of knowing your background, one of the things that the last district I worked at, one of the things that I really promoted, and it's kind of fascinating because you're on the curriculum side, I was on the technology side, and I was saying like we have two departments basically working against each other, whereas we should actually be really kind of focused on working together. And so we started actually embedding the two groups together, and instead of having like a curriculum person and a technology person, we had innovative teaching and learning leads. That was the focus, right? And it was like you should understand curriculum if you're doing technology, and technology should also understand curriculum. It shouldn't be like, hey, we're trying to like do these two, they're connected with one another. So and I don't know if it's a concern as I'm listening to you, I see the power of this for learning, but I think a lot of people might be listening to you and like, oh, this guy's really focused on technology, but that's not your space, right?
No,
You're
not
a
at all.
curriculum person. So how is this really like focused on not tech learning? That is
Yeah.
learning.
So it's not tech at all. It's
Yeah.
all centered around good pedagogy and instructional practice. So one of the tools in this for EDU AI, it's called John Hattie activities.
Yeah.
So anybody who knows John Hattie knows that the reason why he out of New Zealand is the leader in educational research is because he identified the fact that something that everyone agrees on. What do you have, like 4 hours of instructional time throughout the whole school day? How valuable it is. So he did 800 meta-analysis on 300 million students around the world. And what he determined was he identified high yield strategies. And if it's below a 0.4 effect size, you're just wasting time. And then there are some things like with a negative, right? Like popcorn reading, where kids were going to the nurse's office saying they had a headache because they were petrified to read in front of people. That's not a fluency activity. And that's not a tech thing. That's just good instruction. Why are you torturing these kids? And why are you wasting time? So the fact that now that's one of the tools in this amazing platform, AI generates activities based on the top yielding John Hattie research. And so that's another thing that teachers are looking at going, oh my God, like these 5 activities that it just did for me would have taken me weeks to do. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's how do we make teachers' lives easier, but then allow them to be at such a high level with their planning and with the feedback that they provide students.
Just better use of time, deeper learning. That's a big focus.
Yeah, and it's funny you said about technology. So something that Donna Desiato did, the technology director was also a teacher there, and I did the same thing. My technology director here was actually a curriculum and instruction assistant superintendent. So it's not about, you're right. You have to marry those two.
Totally.
It can't be siloed.
Yeah, and I was never a tech person. I was just someone who was interested in learning how to use technology, and then all of a sudden, because I could use a computer, I had to fix lights all of a sudden. It's kind of so you're a superintendent and you are very comfortable with this stuff. So there might be like educational leaders, administrators. What would be if they're like, I don't even know where to start, what would be like the first thing you would suggest for them to try on their own?
The first thing I would say is stay true to your pedagogy, right? Stay true to what are the things that you want to accomplish. And for us, what has always geared us were DeForest 3 questions, right? So what do you want students to know and be able to do? How do you know that they've been able to do that? That's the formative assessment piece. And then differentiation. What do you do for the students that struggle and those students that need further enrichment? Now, how can you utilize AI to help you in those 3 areas? Because it's going to help teachers plan amazing lessons. It's going to help them just literally, like there's certain vocabulary that's aligned to each standard. Just ask the AI and say, how can I teach this vocabulary in a way that's going to help these 9th graders truly understand? And people are blown away. What people need to understand when it comes to AI, whether it's this amazing 4EDU platform or any other one, it comes down to 3 things. The 3 C's. Communicating with AI, collaborating with AI, but critically evaluating it. Because Well, I'm happy with what we have right now. When I use ChatGPT, I couldn't believe how many inaccuracies there were. Like, no, that's not the actual standard, right? It's close, but it's not the standard. And so it's really important that we don't just totally give the keys to technology, or it's going to be like the Terminator, right? Like we're gonna take
Right.
a back seat. And so it's super important that we utilize it. It's a tool. The teacher is still the teacher.
You know, there, and I think that's such a perfect way to kind of end this is a lot of people are really like, how do I work this AI into everything? And you're like saying, no, 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 like, what are you trying to do? And then if the AI supports that, makes it better, then leverage it. But like, I was just, I can't remember where I was, but someone's like, how do I use this, you know, like for music? I'm like, don't, like, you don't need to use this for
Right.
everything, right? Like, you know, but really kind of the sound strategies of what we know is effective teaching. Can it improve those things? If it can, leverage it. But if you can, it can't, you know, maybe at some point there's some ways it will, whatever, but don't try to force it in. Focus on what you know works already. And then does that make it better?
I'm having deja vu because you said this to all of us 15 years ago with technology. Technology shouldn't be a standalone thing where you say to the teacher, and how do you use technology? What you should say is, all right, let's talk about formative assessment and how are you using technology to do that? Let's talk about differentiation and how are you utilizing technology to do it? Let's talk about collaboration with Google Docs, and kids can be located on opposite ends of the district, but they use the same Google Doc to collaborate rather than just think technology is a separate thing. It's not.
This guy, I'm telling you, I talked to this guy for about 40 minutes before he even got here. Blows my mind. So make sure you connect with Tommy. And you know, there's going to be like, if you look him up, there's going to be about 84 Tommy Colabufos probably, right?
Probably, I guess.
Probably. So just so he's a superintendent there at Central Square. And so it was awesome to connect with you, man. Like I'm glad we got to do this. I don't message me every 5 years. You got to maybe,
That's right.
okay. All right. So I don't want to hear
Right.
it like, better not be like 20, 30 and you're
Hey, do
retired.
you remember the walk-up song that I said you should have at the next conference?
What was it? I can't remember what you said.
Smooth Criminal, man.
Right. Yeah, I did actually. That was like the last thing I heard from you, and then COVID, and
And that was done.
then like AI. We weren't even the AI wasn't even a thing that last time. Smooth Criminal, so it might even change.
That's
Maybe they
true.
could do a video of me doing Smooth Criminal now with AI.
I'll have it done in 10 minutes.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Tommy, it was great connecting you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take
All
care.
right, man. Take care.